the Rafto to human rights defenders from around the world, standing up for human rights, often in very difficult circumstances. The crisis shed light on human rights issues in countries spanning all the continents, and then really shedding light on many of those who are not getting too much attention internationally or politically. And this week we have gathered 16 of those laureates here in Plenipotentiary, here in Geneva, to discuss the many challenges facing human rights defenders today. Being a human rights defender is comes with more and more challenges for many of those we are working with. As we see more governments taking authoritarian turn, activity crackdown on civil society and human rights defenders is increasing. And forums like this are important for us and for our laureates to convene and to discuss and to support each other. Last year, the Rafto Prize was awarded in September last year. It was awarded to Defense for Children International Palestine. It was awarded for their work for over 30 years to shed light on children's rights in the occupied Palestinian territories. And it worked to challenge both Palestinian authorities and Israeli authorities on human rights violations, and the work that they've been doing on working for documenting military courts, use of administrative detention, violence, torture against Palestinian children in Israeli jails. Now, 3 weeks after the award was announced, the situation got much more dramatic in ways that I think none of us really could have imagined. And I think that as we are gathering here, we really are all affected by what we are seeing happening in Gaza. It is really become a war on children, and it really highlights the importance of the focus on children's rights in conflict. And we are so glad that Defense for Children International is doing that in over 30 countries. And that's why we're also very glad to be part of this event today, and to welcome you all here. And I'm looking forward to our speakers and what they will be saying. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jostein, and to the Rafto Foundation for this opportunity. Thank you for the laureates who are here attending this meeting, and also from our permanent mission from Geneva and other stakeholders who are joining online or on the spot. I'm going to present you our panel, but before that, just to say a few words about, you understood that we have launched the 5th of April, a series of webinars. This is a bit a new format. We are trying, given the circumstances that Jostein described, to find different ways of communication and of dialogue. That's some of the things that seems to us crucial at this moment. And these webinars are composed of panels of experts who come from different backgrounds. We are in Geneva, but there are people, everything is online. So we can have academics always in the panel. We try to have, we have special rapporteurs and UN procedures. We will have the Commission of Inquiry. We will have other experts. We always try to have at least one, if not more, Palestinians in this group, specialists always of child rights, and UN agencies. So UNICEF has already intervened. So we started on the 5th of April. I know it was not good for many of you because there were meetings here in Geneva. They were with the aid, but at the same time, it was important not to postpone, but also to start a symbolic day, the day of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian Child. So it was launched, for those who missed this first workshop and webinar, It's recorded, so it's available offline. But just to say the spirit of these webinars, because there will be 3 more coming in May, is that we have a distinguished panel of experts, always on child rights and what's happening in Palestine, both Gaza, but also on West Bank, and we should not forget. Secondly, there are always child rights oriented, so child-centric oriented. And thirdly, we have it's not open to social media. We don't want to have 1,000 participants because we want to create also a kind of space of confidence where we can dialogue. So that's also that's the reason we are not using the webinar technical form, but the meeting form, so that the participants can have questions and interact with the experts. So that's a bit the technical background that we propose. There will be a new meetings on the next week already, the 8th of May, always at 2 p.m. Geneva time, to combine also with other continents. The May 17th, 2 p.m. and the May 31st will be the last of this cycle. The objectives of these webinars are, as I said, they're child-centric, but also more specific to work on impact assessment. So examining the impact of military occupation in West Bank and the armed conflict in Gaza. Secondly, the state of and the international responsibilities during the last Human Rights Council here in Geneva. As DCI, we organized a specific workshop on accountability. And although we are not yet there, we believe that accountability has to be from the beginning something that is on our agenda. I speak about our agenda as civil society, but also the agenda of member states. And by the way, I welcome some 15, 20 delegations to participate either in the room or online, because that's also the purpose, to have this dialogue, to have the experts also providing information. The third way of information is prevention efforts. So we have seen gross violation of human rights, of child rights, and of humanitarian law. So how we can work on prevention for the future, that's also something that we have in mind, because our mind is always there on what's happening now, today, in Gaza, and the children there, and their parents, because the children, they don't live alone, in principle. And finally, to speak for the future accountability mechanism and how they could work together. We know that there are different accountability mechanisms here in Geneva, in The Hague, the international level in New York, there's the Security Council. So all these levels sometimes, and that was the purpose of our meeting during the Human Rights Council, how we can make it more efficient, this accountability mechanism to work. That's the objective. The Rafto forum, it was introduced by Jostein, and I think it's very important to have these human rights defenders that come not only from the MENA region, but from all over the world. And I think all now they are sensitive to what's happening, because tomorrow it can happen in their own national context. Then I will go directly to our distinguished panel. First of all, we will give the floor to Khaled Quzmar, who is our president, the president of the DCI movement, but he's also the director of DCI-Palestine, working both in West Bank and Gaza since 33 years. So he will, as Jostein said, DCI-Palestine has been the Laureate the last Laureate 2023 of the Rafto Award, and we want him to develop coming directly from Palestine, what is his priority? What we have to do? Because that's something also in the webinars. When there are different stakeholders, we always ask, the people ask, what can we do to make it stop? And every one of us with different roles, as NGOs, as states, as civil society, as academics, we can do something. And we want to share this. That's also one of the objectives. Then we will have, after Khaled, 2 former laureates, and I will be with pleasure giving the floor to Ahmad Abdallah, who is the chairperson of the Board of Trustees of the Egyptian Commission for Rights and Freedoms, and he's the Rafto Prize Laureate 2020. And after him, Rouba, Mhaissen, the founder and director of Sawa for Development. Rouba, she's from the region, she's Lebanese and Syrian. and she has been working a lot with refugees, so she will give also her perspective and her reaction to what Khaled has been presenting. Then we will have, it's the only panelist online, but you can see him on the screen, Professor Segal, who is the Director, Associate Professor of Holocaust and Genocide Studies, and Endowed Professor of the Study of Modern Genocide at Stockton University. And I think he is now in the States. So thank you. Good morning, Professor. And thank you for joining this webinar. And you will be, for this panel, the academic part, so giving us, hopefully with clear wording, the things that every one of us has to know on genocide. And I think being from Israel, you also have this double title of professor, expert, but also Israeli citizen. And then we have with us two permanent missions. I'm very happy to have again, after the March event, the ambassador of Belgium with us. And he's somebody very experienced. He was, when I met him first, he was at the Security Council. He was ambassador in New York for Belgium. And he's now in Geneva. He's our allies, supports NGOs, and we need people like him. And then together with the ambassador of Belgium, we have Jana from the permanent mission of Slovenia. And Slovenia is a big friend also for child rights. So we are very honored to have you on this panel. And looking forward to your reactions, to your points of view, to your questions also. And also, of course, we will have approximately 50 minutes of presentation. So we will have an hour after this to have questions with you, but also with also the 60 people who are online and participating from all over the world. With this, I'm giving the floor to Khaled. Khaled.
Thank you, Alex. Good afternoon, Excellencies. Thank you for being with us today. And thanks to Rafto Foundation for giving us this opportunity, awarding us while the others are designated us as a terrorist organizations. Rafto Foundation awarded us, and we take it as a message to the Palestinian children, to the Palestinian community, that those who are criminalizing you, we are with you. We never worked together before, but I don't know how they reached me out, and they awarded us this an honor award, and to be part of the Rafto family. So I'm proud of being part of the Rafto family. I try to be brief to talk about the situation in Palestine. As Alex said, I worked in this field as an organization for more than 33 years. Myself, I joined in 1995. So through our work to promote and to document the violation against the children's rights in Palestine, providing the children some legal services in the Israeli military court system and also in the Palestinian court system. And then we also, in order to create the change for the Palestinian children, we start also to use the documentation that we collected from the field in order to try to put in the violation against the children when it comes to the Israeli military system. Because after years of work, we discovered that he's giving services to the children in the Israeli military court, but nothing will change. The number of the children who are arrested is increased, the number of torture and ill-treatment is increased. So we decided to focus on the advocacy in order to put in to these crimes against the children. I can say that even after more than 33 years where we failed to hold Israel accountable for these crimes against humanity, war crimes. But unfortunately, we also continue to see something else we never expect. It's beyond our even imagination. what happened since the 2nd of October until now is atrocities never been happened in Palestine, and unfortunately, who is paying the cost of all that is the civilians in Gaza in particular, including children. And of course, children in the West Bank also, they are subject to ongoing attacks, crimes against humanity, war crimes are also committed. So the life of the Palestinian children, or say the aggression against the Palestinian children, the war that is committed now against the civilians in general, in Gaza and in West Bank, it's, I believe, it's to kill the hope, to kill the life for the Palestinian. So when we look to the numbers, and I'm free to talk about the life of people in numbers, unfortunately, even the numbers is not, we fail even to manage the numbers. Usually we implement the killing of 100 every year, 150 children. Now the 150 were killed in one day. So we reach a time that every 6 minutes, child killed in Gaza Strip. So what they did, nothing. They've been in their houses with their families. And why we are focusing on children? Okay, it is our mandate, but also Gaza, the percentage of the children in Gaza is more than 48% of the community. This is why the number of the children reached the tens of thousands. Now, the last statistic from the Ministry of Health, the Palestinian Ministry of Health, and of course, with, we shared it with the numbers with the other international organizations working in Gaza. There are more than 14,500 children killed within the almost 7 months. This means that every day, more than 100 children used to be killed by the Israeli. So no one care from the Israeli side care about these numbers. Nobody even says sorry for that. In the contrary, what is happening, it started in the 7th of October, the second day of the 7th of October, by the press conference that the Israeli Defense Minister published, and also followed by the statements from the Prime Minister that war in Gaza, no innocent in Gaza, human animals in Gaza, no children in Gaza. So we saw the translation of how they implement these orders, the army, and how they implement it in the ground by the huge number of the killing until now. So when I say that they are killing the life, yes, they are killing the life in Gaza. And in the West Bank also, they are killing the hope by continue their raid to the Palestinian communities, to the refugee camps. Every night, more than 10 raided to the Palestinian communities, and each raid they arrested, they killed, they injured, they demolished houses. So it's a war against the Palestinians. So when I don't want to keep counting the victims, but also we have to be clear about the more than 1,200,000 Palestinians who are living in Gaza, children. Those who are lived under ongoing bombing from the sky, from the sea, and from the land. So you can imagine how is the life for those. Not only that, but also killing the means of the life, like cutting the food. The food become and the food become a war tool. They use the women against the civilians. They are not using it against Hamas. They are using it against the children who need for the food, the same and their mothers and their brothers. So I'm not sure what we'll see after the war. What happened to the children who are suffering trauma and traumatized and don't know, there is even no hospital to be treated there, or also those who are injured. There is no hospital. The hospital has been also targeted and provided by the Israeli army for weeks, and then we discovered the results was the killing of the civilians while they've been tied hands, legs, and then blindfolded, and they buried them with the bulldozers. So the crimes that are ongoing committed in Gaza until now, from my experience, it's unprecedented before, even in other places in the world. So our concern now is to raise this issue because, as Alex said, we don't want to see these atrocities, these crimes in any place in the world. The Palestinian is back to the West Bank. Those who are not injured or not killed, they are subject to be at risk. But the same in Gaza. Now in Gaza, I can say only we know about 20 children from Gaza, they are in prison, Israeli prison, but no one managed to visit them with the lawyers, no family visits, so no information about them, about their case. But at the same time, there is hundreds of children. We sure that they are in prison because the Israeli army, when they used to raid the shelters, the schools where the civilians there, they used to ask those who are from the age of 13 or 14 up to 60 to be named and put them in the trucks and take them to other places. Nobody knows what happened to them, but we expect that there is hundreds of children there are there without any single information about them because Israel decided to keep them, and even some of them may be classified as combatant, unlawful combatant. This is an Israeli creation. In the international law, there is two descriptions. There is a prisoners of war and there is a prisoners. But they create a new creation called unlawful combatant, and those who are denied all their rights, even no information about them. Arresting children under administrative detention. Myself, I worked 20 years in the Israeli military courts. If I recall well, during the 20 years, I never reached the number, the whole period of children under administrative detention for the number of 20. Now the number is, this month, according to the Israeli statistic, more than 61 children under administrative detention arrested and put in prison without knowing why. No charge, no lawyer, present the children. So this is the situation. If we continue in this, Israel continued in this way, I believe that we will find, or will become see that the number of the killing will be hundreds and maybe thousands, especially when there is lack of food, lack of water, clean water, no hospitals, and of course the diseases are now everywhere. Still, people live in shelters in each classroom in the school. From the school, there is more than 5 families. So you can imagine the life there. So it's a disaster. And I believe that it is our responsibility as international community also in order to put all the efforts, to put the pressure on Israel to stop, to reach immediate ceasefire, in order to keep support those who are in need for the support, medical support, social support, food, water, in order to save the life of the civilians. And at the same time, yes, West Bank is, as I said, there are also children who are living under such atmosphere, with the killing, with the arresting. So it is a war against children in Palestine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khaled. We will come back to you. Indeed, you don't want to give figures, but I think sometimes figures are also important. So we have to be conscious that we are speaking about tens of thousands of wounded children in their body, amputated, or in their soul, and there is no child, I think, in Gaza who is not on post-traumatic stress syndrome. 70,000 according to UNICEF, and it's all this is underestimated of these children who have, there's a new category of children with no parents anymore, but not even close family. So it's a new category that we have to deal with when we will have access. 40,000, more than 40,000 children killed. And again, figures do not say anything, but to give you an idea, this is higher than the number of children killed in all armed conflict around the world during the last 4 years. So it's huge, and we are here. And then, into parentheses, 182 UN staff killed. So what are the limits of this? Before giving the floor to Ahmed, I would like to give the floor to Dunya. Dunya is a girl from Gaza. We will listen to her. Unfortunately, she's not alive anymore, but she left her message. That was filmed by DCI-Palestine during the week of truth, where they had access to the Palestinian hospital, to the hospitals in Gaza. She was amputated. She had lost her mother and father. She was still hoping that she will come and become a doctor to help other people not to live what she lived. So that's her message, but there are thousands of messages like this. With this, I give the floor to Ahmed.
Thanks a lot for giving me the opportunity to speak in this event. And actually, I was extremely touched by the video. Like we have seen all the horrors of the world in this war against Gaza. And Gaza is at the borders of Egypt, and this is the deadliest wars that we have ever seen. Deadliest not just for civilians, and for humanitarian workers. More than 180 staff of the UN have been killed in this war. I mean, around 250 humanitarian workers from different organizations have been killed. I mean, the figure say it all. It's more than 34,000 Palestinians have been killed in this war. I mean, there are tens of thousands as well under the rubble that we don't know their whereabouts. More than 77,000 has been wounded. 75% of which are children and women. So, I mean, it's something that is unimaginable. More than 50%, more than 60% of Gaza home has been demolished. Now everyone is moving towards Rafah, and Israel is threatening with the ground operation at Rafah, which will make the humanitarian crisis much more. People are left, I mean, children are left without education. People don't have like enough food. There is a threat of famine if it is not there in place. The healthcare system in Gaza has collapsed, and people don't find like clean water, sanitation. They are prone to diseases. It will happen even if the war stops tomorrow. People will die out of these diseases, and it will take like as the experts model 14 years to remove the rubble and to rebuild Gaza. This is the outcome of the war. But this is one thing, and its effect on other places of the world is something else. Now, lots of people see the double standards of lots of countries, especially countries that used to be champions of human rights. And now they are supporting what is happening, and they are failing to protect civilians in Gaza. Lots of young people now, when you speak to them about human rights, they do not think that these human rights apply to everyone. They say it just applies to certain kind of people, but surely it doesn't apply to us in the Middle East. And of course, seeing like the Hollywood figures and the images that we see, traumatized children in Gaza that have lost their families. I mean, there is a new terminology right now, which is wounded children with no surviving family members. I wonder how these people will live. I wonder how this will affect us all. But it's a shame that no one is able to stop this war. No one is able to protect civilians. People have lost faith not just in the international human rights standards, but even international humanitarian law, the laws of war, which dates back to thousands of years. It's important to everyone to have these laws in place. And now we're seeing like we're seeing what's happening in front of our eyes and no one is moving. I mean, intentionally starving people and, you know, impeding relief supplies is a war crime according to their own statute. It's prohibited to starve people according to the international humanitarian law. These things has to be taken into account. And in Egypt, of course, it has like implications on us. For example, there are about 1,500 Palestinian wounded people who has been moved to Egypt to receive medical care with about 2,000 of their family members. Of course, after clearance from the Egyptian side and the Israeli side. And they take 45 days visa, and after which they are in a venue. They cannot register themselves with the university or in Egypt as a release because it's not under their mandate. And they cannot as well receive any assistance from Egypt because it's not in their mandate. And they cannot as well legalize their presence and they are left with nothing. And when I say nothing, there is no humanitarian organization in Egypt working to help these people. They cannot find like money to rent. They cannot find like money to pay for the medical service for their children. They cannot register their kids at school. They have nothing. And they are left. And this is a case of Palestinians in Egypt at least, but I think it's everywhere. On the other side, still in Egypt, lots of people who went to take on the streets and try to protest against what's happening in Gaza, they were jailed. Up till now, there are 70 people in jail who have protested for a ceasefire in Gaza. I mean, less than 2 weeks, 14 of the Egyptian women, they protested in front of the UN women offices in Egypt to hand them a letter accusing the UN women accusing UN women of failing to protect the women in Gaza. They were all detained. And thank God they were released the next day, but the protest was dispersed. They were unable to deliver their message. They were arrested. I mean, we have to do something. We have to restore faith in international human rights standards. We have to restore faith in the international humanitarian law. And failing to act so is very dangerous for the future. It's very dangerous. because these laws are the one that really keeps the world, without which it's the laws of the jungle. And I don't think anyone wants to fall into the laws of the jungle. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, for bringing your voice from Egypt, or from the neighbor country, as you said, where not only, as you said, the people are left, those who have the chance to go through their limbo, they don't have any access, but also you have to pay, I don't know how many thousands of dollars to have a visa to get the crossing. So it's not acceptable what's happening, also from the point of view of refugee law and of access of civilians to health and basic treatment. Now, I'm very happy to give the floor to Rouba and give us another regional perspective.
Salam everyone.
Close.
Salam everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here, and I was very honored to see all the Rafto laureates, but in particular Khaled, من ريحة Palestine. We say in Arabic, from the smell of Palestine. I can smell Palestine, so I think it's just refreshing. If you allow me, Khaled was 14 years old when he visited his brother in prison, who was also a child. And he could not hug him. And he came back home and he said, why couldn't I hug my brother? Why are prisons made in a way that I cannot hug my brother? And this is, I'm not going to say how many years later, so that you don't know how old this Khaled, but many, many years later, Khaled is a lawyer and he's still fighting for the rights of prisoners. So as much of a grim picture that Khaled and Alex and Ahmad presented, I would like to counter the rhetoric that all of these children are going to grow up to join Hamas. I would like to say that all of these children are going to grow up to change the world. The same way that Khaled saw the injustice and couldn't bear it, and he decided to do something different. The same way that this little girl wanted to be a doctor because her foot was amputated. I want us to start looking at Palestine with a little bit of hope, despite the extreme pain and suffering and anger that we. So I do hope that all of these children will grow up and be able to do something as wonderful as Khaled. Those are the parentheses. I could start with my own talking points. I mean, the plight of Palestinians is not new. I have worked with Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, Palestinian refugees in Syria, Syrian Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, and on and on and on, because when you meet a refugee, it's someone who has been displaced and redisplaced. Every single displacement means reinventing yourself and your life and your communities and your networks. But I think really what I would like to add to everything that has been said is that we are really in a very, very, very critical point in the history of life, of our lives, because, and we said that before in the context of Syria, when Bashar al-Assad bombed hospitals, everyone stood silent. And Israel has always bombed hospitals, but not in the same fierce way that is doing right now, knowing that Bashar al-Assad has bombed hospital and everyone is normalizing it. Bashar al-Assad committed crimes related to chemical crimes, chemical weapon use against its own people, and bombing them. And Obama drew red lines, Bashar al-Assad crossed these red lines. The world stood silent. And what Russia is doing in Ukraine today is a result of the silence of the world of what has been done in Syria. So what kind of messaging are we giving the world today when we're being silenced to the war crimes that Israel is committing? I mean, Israel commits wars in Gaza every 3 years, but the lack of accountability is what is really frightening me. if we don't have accountability is a form of prevention for the next war crimes. The international law is a sacred book, should be at least as sacred as religious books, if not more, because everyone agrees on it, but nobody is applying it. There has been the creation of International Commission of Inquiry on OPT and the occupied Palestinian territory in Israel. But guess what? They need a visa to enter Israel, Palestine. And who doesn't provide or provides this visa? Israel. So these people cannot go and do their mandate, which is an international mandate. They cannot go to investigate these crimes. Under the Genocide Convention, there are specific chapters related to the specificity of children's presence in genocides. And these have been used in many contexts, the last of which maybe is Myanmar. But these have not been applied or used in the case of Palestine. They're not being used right now in Gaza. So when Ahmad speaks of hypocrisy and double standards, yes, we feel it. I mean, I graduated from my bac français and liberté, égalité, fraternité, all of these slogans. Then I went to London, I lived for 10 years studying human rights and development, and all of this means absolutely nothing to me today. As an Arab, Muslim, brown woman, it doesn't mean anything. So how do you want the youth to take these seriously moving forward? Silencing of freedom and speech, what's happening right now in the US, it's frightening. And by the way, those are European values and those are Western values. If you're not scared for our children, aren't you scared for yours? Aren't you scared for your European values? Your children will grow up in this new world that we are forging together by being silent. And maybe as a Syrian, I'm not very much astonished at the hypocrisy because we've been there. It's been 12, 13 years that we've been there. But this time, what's scary is that we're not even trying to hide it anymore. And I told my friends, in the context of Syria, we would go to receptions with champagne and caviar to talk about the human rights violations in Syria. Now, we don't even talk about it. We don't even want to use the right words. Some governments have been opposed to using the word genocide. I mean, do we have a clear definition or not? If we have agreed on a definition, then we should use it. If I say now, religious extremism, what's the first image that comes to your mind? Someone who looks like me, right? Why don't you think of someone who looks like an Israeli soldier? If I say terrorist to you, what do you imagine? You imagine someone from the Taliban. Isn't what being committed today in Palestine terrorism? I think we also have a lot to work on in decolonizing our minds and how we think about these struggles. And anti-Semitism, I mean, just to tell you, we both are Semites. We talk Semite languages, we are from Semite races. So, and anti-Semitism has never been an Arab problem, and it's never been a Palestinian problem. My parents' neighbor, Yola, they grew up together. She's Jewish. I'm sure we can tell so many of these stories. So, I mean, just about these definitions to maybe rethink about them. And Khaled used the word, one child dies every 6 minutes, right? And I don't want to talk about myself, but I want to share a small anecdote. On the 13th of March, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, yes, 2 years ago now, it was my birthday, and I found out that I was pregnant. And, from the minute I found out I was pregnant, my whole life changed. Of course, for women, they know what I'm talking about. I named the baby, and I bore the baby, and I lived 9 beautiful months with him. And while I was delivering him, he passed away. Okay. So when I look at the Palestinian mothers, and I'm not comparing because I don't have the right to compare. When we say a child dies every 6 minutes, it's a child that someone did a pregnancy test and found out they were pregnant, right? And then the mom threw up for 3 months, and then she became sleepy for another 3, and then she delivered the baby, and then she nursed the baby, baby, and then she breastfed the baby, and then there was a first day at school, and then there was a graduation from nursery, and then there was all of these, and then she put on the socks for her baby's feet and kissed his feet multiple times before he became 6 and 13 and 15 and 19 and killed in front of her. So I refuse to use these numbers. I'm sorry, I cannot use, because I'm really like delegitimizing a whole history of that child and the suffering of their parents. It just hurts to talk about, a number. These children have the right to be protected against violence, against neglect, against abuse, against exploitation, against displacement and redisplacement, against detention. 700 children annually detained in Israel, even before October 7, against interrogation. They have the right to education and quality education. I was showing Alex a picture of a woman who started to a little school of like 5 children sitting on the floor in Bethlehem. They have the right to nutrition. And here I'm not even talking about leisure and cultural activities, like my 2 babies right now, they're in their swimming lesson. I'm not even talking about that, right? I'm talking just about the very basic rights. So this is what we should think about, the trauma after trauma after trauma that these children are living. And really how we can define civil liberties, and not to talk, for example, about feminism. For me, honestly, feminism, Western feminism, no thank you. No thank you, no thank you. Because when women are being killed daily while pregnant, when a bulldozer, steps on a pregnant woman's body, when they kill 4,000 embryos, but not embryos, what should say? Yeah, this, because of the fear that little sperm might even grow up to be a Palestinian, God forbid, one day, and nothing is being said about that. So, yeah, these are the things that I constantly think about. And just to close, because I know I might be over time already, we are capable of a lot. Never underestimate your capacities. Those who ended the wars, it can be you, especially diplomats and people who live in Geneva. You have the power, you just don't want to use it, not you, but like people who have the power can choose to use, you are capable to use this power. We are capable. I know we feel our hands are tied, but I feel like we are capable, and one of you might be that person who ended the war one day. We think of geopolitics, the US, Netanyahu, yeah, but we are capable of doing something about it, and it's not on the micro level, then maybe on the macro level, then maybe on the micro level by decolonizing our minds. I'm sure some of your colleagues still believe the rhetoric of Israel's, so it's your duty to talk about this at work. It's your duty to help them see the truth. It's part of our collective liberation to liberate each other's minds. It's our duty to boycott. I don't want to buy a Louis Vuitton bag if they're going to use my money to kill a child. I don't want to drink, anyway, it's not a very good coffee, but like, I don't want to drink a not good coffee so that, someone can kill a child in my name. I want to shop local. I want to support local brands. And I think I said it during my Rafto. This is one last thing that I always say, like, if you want to help Palestine, call your mother, because at the end of the day, the world is connected, and if we get overwhelmed by huge causes, sometimes calling our mother or saluting our neighbor or even helping in a local charity, it will eventually trickle down to making the world a better place. I always give this example so that we don't feel like there is nothing we can do. Maybe it will things we can do as well. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Rouba, for speaking about accountability, and most of all for using humanized language for accountability, because something also we discovered in this work is the dehumanizing language that is used, using figures, but also, that's also something that we learned, and it's very sad, in fact, to continue using. And also, I take also your point a lot on decolonizing our language, which is so important, and using what we have. You mentioned the Commission of Inquiry, who has mandates both in Palestine and in Israel, by the way, and they don't have access, as many other special rapporteurs and all the UN special procedures. Why? Why do we have to have? Without this makes a good transition to give the floor to Professor Segal. Just take care of it. We change the screens, and also we can highlight Professor Segal, who will share also later a PowerPoint.
Thank you so much, Alex, and very honored to be here, and thank you to all the speakers. I'm going to share my screen. So. Okay. So many people have talked and continue to talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But Israel's attack on Gaza is not conflict, even though it followed the Hamas-led attack on Israel on 7th of October. This misconception, talking about a conflict, willful or otherwise, structures efforts in the West, including in Western academia, to minimize, blur, disavow, and deny the character of Israel as a settler colonial state. The distorted lens of conflict, in other words, legitimizes the basic oppressive relationship between Zionist colonizers and colonized Palestinians. Okay. As Zionist leader, Zev Jabotinsky put it in The Iron Wall, a seminal text that he wrote in 1923. And it's important to say that this is, this is a text that is, first of all, it's very well known. You can find it in English translation on the Jabotinsky Institute website. And it's an internal debate among Zionists where the father of revisionist Zionism, Jabotinsky, the right-wing Zionism, is arguing with left-wing Zionists. And he's telling them, we're not aiming to build a homeland on a land without a people, this kind of Zionist myth. He says, no, there are people there. And he asks them, do you know of any case of colonization where the colonized population accepted the colonizers? And of course, he says, no. And this is what he says. He says, colonization can only have one aim, that is taking the land of the colonized people, and Palestinian Arabs cannot accept this aim. So that Zionist colonization, he determines, must either stop or else proceed regardless of the native population. It's very important to read Zionists and also Zionist historians, by the way, because they're telling us, right, they've been talking about this truth in a very explicit and direct way about Zionism as settler colonialism. And Zionism indeed proceeded, so that the creation of Israel in the 1948 war was the Palestinian Nakba, the mass deportations of 750,000 Palestinians, amidst massacres of 15,000 Palestinians, and the destruction of hundreds of Palestinian towns and villages. Denial of the Nakba has therefore figured as a hallmark of the denial of Israel as a settler colonial state, the denial of this basic truth from the very beginning. It is remarkable, then, that Israeli leaders, politicians, and journalists have used the word Nakba numerous times since 7th of October, actually. And it's important to say that Nakba denial, of course, a key element of Western identity in Israel and in the West since 1948, right? And in Israel, the Nakba denial is also criminalized. There's the Nakba law in Israel. But since 7th of October, we hear the word Nakba a lot from Israeli leaders. Now they're admitting the 1948 Nakba and pushing for, quote, a second Nakba. And here there's just two pieces of examples that are actually well known, but there's many others. Ariel Kalner, who's the member of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, for the ruling Likud party, already on 7th of October on social media said, Nakba to the enemy now, Nakba that will overshadow the Nakba of 1948. And indeed, the scale of killing and destruction in Gaza, and we've heard the numbers, Israel has killed now more than 35,000 Palestinians, and there's many, many more than 10,000 probably under the rubble and most likely dead. This includes nearly 15,000 children, more than 80,000 wounded, and Israel has forcibly displaced nearly the entire population of 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza. This now exceeded the destruction of the Palestinian life and culture during the 1948 Nakba, as Kaldner called for already on 7th of October. Now, Israeli War Cabinet Minister Avi Dichter described this second Nakba on Israeli TV on 11th of November 2023 openly. All this discourse, by the way, as we know, is open, it's direct, it's unashamed. And he just called Israel's attack, the Gaza Nakba. Now, Palestinians have been experiencing and talking about an ongoing Nakba since 1948. But perpetrators of mass violence usually do not move from denial to recognition in this way. And this tells us something about the very specific character of the Israeli case of genocide on Gaza. Now, Avi Dichter was portraying what a document of the Israeli Ministry of Intelligence had envisioned a month earlier, on 13th of October, a leaked document about the forced removal of all Palestinians in Gaza to the Sinai Desert across the Egyptian border. This, of course, is not the language of conflict, but of mass violence, which the International Court of Justice depicted as plausibly genocide in its provisional ruling on 26th of January in the case of South Africa against Israel. Now, in a speech to Israelis on 13th of January 2024, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded to the South African case against Israel at the ICJ by casting Hamas as Nazis. More specifically, Netanyahu said that Israeli soldiers had found in Gaza a tablet of a girl with a photo of Hitler as its screensaver. Now, no evidence for this has surfaced anywhere, not even in the Israeli media. And anyone who's been following the Israeli media in Hebrew since 7th of October has been exposed to horrific language and images of incitement to genocide that are themselves, by the way, unprecedented, right, in the modern history of genocidal violence. Again, direct, unashamed, really unbelievable use of language. No evidence for a little girl in Gaza with a tablet and Hitler as its screensaver has surfaced, not even in that. But Netanyahu knew that Israelis need no evidence for the idea that Palestinians in Gaza are Nazis, because it has been articulated in various ways in Israeli politics and media since 7th of October, but also well before 7th of October, including by Netanyahu himself, of course. The focus in this case on a Palestinian child in the context of an attack that has already killed nearly 15,000 Palestinian children renders this image thoroughly genocidal. Now, there's little doubt about the dehumanization of Palestinians in Israeli society well before 7th of October. Shirts printed by Israeli army units 15 years ago depict pregnant Palestinian women and children as military targets. And you can see the image here. It's of a sniper unit, and there's the image of a pregnant Palestinian woman. And in English, actually, this is in English on the shirt, it says 1 shot, 2 killed. Palestinian professor Nadira Shalab-Kevorkian has documented what she called in the title of her book from 2019, Incarcerated Childhood and the Politics of Unchilding. The book examines the systematic Israeli colonial attacks against Palestinian children in the occupied West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Gaza Strip, and the consequences this has for their present and future well-being. It shows how Israeli mass violence casts colonized children as dangerous, racialized, quote-unquote, others who do not deserve a future as legitimate subjects. In some cases, as in these Israeli army shirts that you see, they do not even deserve to be born. placing at the center of her work the voices, the experiences, the perspectives, the histories, and the knowledge of the Palestinian children who face Israeli state violence. Professor Kobbeltvedt also charts in the book children's resistance to and the power to interrupt colonial violence, reclaiming childhood, and with it, Palestinian futures, and as Dr. Mhaissen said, the ability to actually change the world. Netanyahu and other Israeli leaders have used, alongside Nazis, related images to dehumanize Palestinians as quote-unquote killable, especially the portrayal of Palestinians as Amalek, a reference to the biblical story of the Israelites destroying completely a people perceived as a whole as the ultimate enemy, including, of course, children. Israeli leaders have also referred many times to a struggle against, quote, evil, to Gaza as a city of evil, as Netanyahu said again already on 7th of October, and to numerous references to a war of the people of light against the people of darkness. Now, soldiers and officers, Israeli soldiers and officers on the ground have understood the genocidal message, and they have expressed it themselves in numerous videos that they have reported and posted on social media, describing openly, again, unashamed and directly, what they did in Gaza and why they did it. On 30th of January 2024, this is after the ICJ provisional ruling, for instance, Captain Chemo, who's the deputy commander of a company, an officer, posted a video of himself on social media saying the following: with the help of God, we have destroyed a vast area of Gaza and killed tens of thousands of Amaleks. But we are not yet a moral army. This is the real war of the people of Israel. Moral is to understand that every Arab is a suspect. Maybe he is good, maybe he is a bomb, but he is a suspect. Moral is to execute all the terrorists after interrogating them. Moral is to conquer and settle all the land of Israel. In every place we will leave a wasp's nest, they will retaliate against us sooner or later. Now here, very clearly, Chemo understands the biblical Amalek story as the basis of a moral framework, and it's important to remind ourselves that perpetrators of mass violence and genocide always have a moral framework. The Nazis had a moral framework, for example, right? Chemo's moral framework is based on a view of all Palestinians and enemies, who therefore should be executed. This is furthermore articulated within an explicit settler colonial framework, right? The call to occupy and settle the whole of the land of Israel, which is a religious image, without leaving any wasp's nest, as he said, therefore also concluding with explicit dehumanization. The weaponization of the Holocaust is key here, for it erases Israeli history and turns the world upside down. The powerless people, forcibly displaced and attacked through decades of Israeli settler colonialism, military occupation, and siege, become the worst perpetrators in modern imagination. This image then casts the settler colonial state, armed with nuclear weapons and backed by all its Western allies, as the ultimate victim. A completely absurd image, but we live in a world of absurdity all the time, so we probably shouldn't be very surprised. A war against Nazis is not a conflict. Rather, it requires in Israeli minds the lifting, quote, of all restrictions, as Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant explained already on 10th of October. Again, all this is explicit and open. It is therefore urgent to recognize the horrible truth articulated both long ago by Jabotinsky and very recently by Avi Dichter, that Zionism is indeed premised on the destruction of Palestinians, on an ongoing Nakba. It has, in fact, been urgent to recognize this truth, at the very least since 1948. And speaking as an Israeli and speaking as a Jew, opposing Zionism is absolutely not anti-Semitic. Zionism is a political ideology tied to an extremely violent state, past and present. It has nothing to do with the people, with Jews. There's a basic difference between a people and a state. and it's definitely actually within the frame of Jewish history, within the frame actually of the struggle against anti-Semitism, to reject extremely violent political ideology like Zionism. This is urgent because we will fail to address this reality, this genocidal reality, without recognizing it. And it is urgent because it remains a condition, recognizing and addressing this truth for envisioning other futures beyond the Iron Wall. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Segal. I think it was very interesting to listen to you, to also the statement, because this is, as you say, it's not, it's in the media, it's recorded, and that's also what is more shocking. And it's good to have your voice, also as a professor, a specialist of Holocaust and genocide, but also as Israeli. And we hope that we will have more Israeli voices also raising, because we are sure that there are a lot of people who disagree with the current policies. Now I'm giving the floor to the ambassador from Belgium to react to the speakers.
Well, thank you very much, Alex, and thank you and congratulations to DCI for organizing this event, for drawing attention to the plight of children in Gaza right now. It's absolutely crucial. Indeed, as Rouba said, we cannot remain silent. So we have to be vocal. We have to be vocal on the fact that protection of children in armed conflict is a basic obligation, a fundamental obligation, I would say, for all parties to conflict. And we have to keep saying this and repeating. And well, we heard the figures about the children that are suffering. I'm not going to repeat them. I think right now the urgency is first to provide assistance, shelter, food, healthcare to those children. Medium term, probably, well, education, because schools have been destroyed, teachers are either killed or missing, displaced. So that's going to be a lot of work to be done, accomplished. Then the mental health dimension that Alex, you mentioned, which will be, I think, a huge challenge for years to come. But then, of course, also accountability, and I think this is a bit the issue on which I would like to focus. And obviously, there is a need for accountability for several reasons. Rouba, you mentioned the prevention dimension, so forth, to prevent further crimes, very important indeed. Also, the dimension that's medium or maybe long term, but we know that there will be no lasting peace if there is no accountability for crimes and violations that have been committed on both sides. I want to underline that. And also another reason is for the victims themselves, for the survivors, for the families of the victims. They are entitled to accountability. And that's also extremely important for the healing process. So for all these reasons, we need to put the pressure that on the various, let's say, accountability system, the tools that exist. And let me list maybe a few of them. First, of course, there is this case at the ICJ brought by South Africa that Professor Segal mentioned. We all are very familiar with it. It's ongoing. It's probably going to take quite some time. But eventually, the ruling, the judgment will be legally binding. Important to keep that in mind. It's not an advisory opinion, and it will be a judgment that is legally binding. Then, of course, there is the ICC. Of course, Israel is not a party to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, but Palestine is. And so that gives the competence to the court for crimes committed on the territory of Palestine or committed by Palestinian citizens on the territory of Israel. And so that means the ICC could, and we hope will, address crimes committed in the context of the Hamas attack in Israel on the 7th of October, and of course the ensuing military operation by Israel in Gaza. And there are rumors that the prosecutor could announce some indictments soon. We don't know, but that's what the rumor is. So we'll of course see what the prosecutor will do. Then let me mention, of course, the Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, created by the Human Rights Council. That is right now collecting evidence, data that can be used by the ICC, that can be used by national tribunals as well, possible. Then I think, Alex, you mentioned also the Security Council. And indeed, I mean, we know the situation in the Security Council. Still, there is a mechanism under the UN Security Council on children and armed conflict. CAC, probably the acronym. And there, the key instrument is actually the annual reports of the Secretary General on the violation. There are 6 grave violations against children. So the reports once a year in an annex, especially. Well, the report describes the violations, but the most important piece is an annex to the report, which lists parties to conflicts which are committing one of those or several of those 6 violations. And this list includes government forces, but could also include non-state actors, armed groups, etc. And that's really a report by the SG himself, so under his own and sole responsibility. So that means the Security Council could not, there is no veto. But of course, you can imagine the pressure under which the SG is at the moment he finalizes this report. And so far, Israel was never listed in this report. Now, the next report is coming up in June, so relatively soon. And of course, it will be very interesting to see what the SG will do about the situation in Gaza. Once a country or group is on the list, that enables the working group, the Security Council on Children and Armed Conflict, to act on those situations, which means adopting conclusions, sending possible official letters signed by the President of the Security Council to the country concerned, mandating the special representative, the Secretary General on Children and Armed Conflict, to engage the party concerned. Usually the idea is to negotiate and sign action plans to address the violation. So there is a range of actions that are possible. Finally, let me also mention the Convention on the Rights of the Child and its committee. Israel, actually, which is party to the convention, was scheduled to be reviewed by the committee last February, but requested postponement. And if I'm correct, the review is now planned to take place in September. And that is also going to be, of course, an important moment where questions will be put to the Israeli delegation. Let me mention that Russia was a few months ago, I think in January, Russia was reviewed, and the questions were also raised not only on what is happening in Russia, but also in the conflict in Ukraine. So there is some extraterritoriality possible. So the committee could also address what's going on in Gaza. I think I will stop here. This gives, I mean, sometimes we have the feeling we are unable to do anything, and it's not true. I mean, it may be very little. I understand, Rouba, I really understand your feeling. Still, these things exist, and little by little, there is a way. There is a way to do something for the international. Thank you.
Ambassador, because with your experience both in New York and Geneva, you gave us a really solid for good and for hot afterward, because when we think about it, and if we see no entry, no for accountability, it's the worst. You mentioned three important milestones that we would see in the coming months very soon. So the Commission of Inquiry, we don't have the luxury to have a commission, independent UN independent commission of inquiry for our countries, but we have one who has a specific mandate given by the Human Rights Council on obviously the occupied Palestinian territory and Israel, by the way. And they can go backwards and they can go forwards and they can give recommendations. The problem is, as you mentioned, as was mentioned from one of the speakers, they don't have access because they could even investigate what happened on the 7th of October. And I think in their future report of June, on the June Human Rights Council, they're going to focus on this. But it would have been much better if they had access by Israel to the spot. And then they are reporting, they have this double mandate, so as also special rapporteurs, they will be reporting to the General Assembly in October. And in October, at least as civil society, they are contributing all the documentation necessary, and they are collecting for all parties, including member states. The second you mentioned very well, it's very soon, is the Security Council and the General Secretary report. We really hope that this time Israel will be listed, because if it's not listed, there will be something going very, very wrong in the process, complete discredit, I would say, to the process. So we hope that it will be there. It's in June. Beginning of June is the report will be public and discussed. It's online for all of you in the Security Council at the last week of June. In principle, these are the dates. So we look forward to it, and we are looking at them very closely. DCI, together with Green, who is our partner in this event, and others, we are part of Watch List. It's a kind of network of NGOs working with the Security Council, the group on the children non-conflict, and they have already posted their alternative report saying that there is absolutely no reason, even with the data we had before the 7th of October, there was enough numbers, gross violations to have Israel listed. So after the 7th of October, it would be impossible not to have this. And the third, you mentioned the CRC, but I won't go into details because we have both online but also in the room distinguished members of the CRC present, and they will talk to us about the process. There is a new list of issues addressed to Israel, taking into account the events that happened since October. And we hope that it won't be postponed again. This is in Geneva. The floor is yours now.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Last but not least, I go. My name is Jana, I'm a VPR of Slovenia here in Geneva. I cover Palestinian parts. at Human Rights Council. I'm also a political anthropologist by profession. I'm political anthropologist with an extensive field experience, so my foot is always on the field. And I have honestly been in double roles constantly since the attack in Israel. I am a diplomat and at the same time I'm also a person with deep feelings and political opinions. And honestly, it has been a struggle for lots of diplomats to combine the roles. Because on the one side, we have our procedures, we have our resolutions that we need to negotiate, we have our outreach countries, we have people on the other side, which sometimes pretend they do not understand, and it is difficult. But we are doing it, and as Rouba said, we need to look at the children in Palestine as the one who will be creating a different future. And this is something that we need to all abide to, and we need to stand behind that idea. Otherwise, as you have all said it, the system of human rights and the humanitarian law, as we know it, and human rights law, as we know it, is simply not there anymore. So I would say one step at a time. On accountability, thank you very much, Ambassador. I can only copy paste your plans to take it. This is something that my country, Slovenia, has been struggling to persuade like-minded, not like-minded, but other countries to abide to. I will add to the accountability also the report of Francesca Albanese, recent report, which has a very the title that is very wording, and that is the anatomy of a genocide. And it's worth reading every sentence of it, because we can learn and we can see what can be done with one report and what kind of outreach can be done. My country is, as you know, the member of the Security Council. We were holders on the ceasefire resolution, and we are doing outreach as we speak in New York in that regard. We are saying again and again that humanitarian aid needs to be delivered and that it needs to reach all the people in Gaza. The numbers of children dying is just horrifying, and we need to do it again and again and again. This is the only way probably to live our lives and still be humble enough to say that we are human beings, actually. So about double standards, the best way to have an argument against double standards is not to have one. Right? And this is what all the countries, probably in Human Rights Council and in Security Council, needs to infuriate. But how to decolonize the minds of the people who are the ones who are colonizing them? That is probably the biggest question. And last but not least, let me underline the importance of women's security agenda in the Security Council and beyond. In one sentence, please put women on the table, at the table when we talk about this. Because we can hear time and time again that our perspective is not different. I'm not talking about feminism. I know about the troubles with the Western ideology and feminism. I'm talking about simply women being there when the peace negotiations and the struggles to reconciliation are there, because the perspectives needs to be shared as in this table and in this audience. Probably this is the only thing that we can share perspective. I will finish with that sentence, and I hope that we can move on to exchange in half an hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jana, for speaking as a diplomat, also as an anthropologist. I think it's very important. Thank you for stating the anatomy of the genocide, the last report of the Special Rapporteur Albanese, to whom we had her in our first webinar. And we pay tribute for her courage, because it's not easy, and with the number of attacks that she receives right now. Thank you for speaking about double standards, about decolonizing minds and how to do it, and also about women. And I would add women and children, because we have seen in the children and armed conflict working group that all the peace agreements where you have women and children in the negotiations, so they have been much more sustainable and much more efficient. So that's women and children, that's we have in peace. Now we have stopped the presentation, but we start a real debate. Online on the chat, send us questions, and then we start with the link, because I'm sure that plenty of questions. With the second month, that's the answer debates when you're doing it. We have a panel with different backgrounds, the Palestinian background, and the region, the missions, Moderator, Geneva, works. So we have also Professor Segal still online. So please, that question is always a little bit difficult, but we can start. My colleagues would say there's any question on that. There is a second one that we can do. Please. I'm thinking of national Belgium, so that the and so the like China. Thank you for this organizing this panel. Thank you for the speaker. I think that that's a good panel and very strong. Thank you for this. Yes, that's the statement. We appreciate that, and I think that we really remember that we are looking at the people who will use that of certain will be close that now, and we will see in the future and a very short time. Just that, I'm looking for the method Belgium for highlighting that China has been and so we are indeed supposed to receive Israel in February. They asked the schools, hopefully that's in September. But in between, and so a new list of issues. We know that the committee is asked to issue a state of action, and that was a little bit for Israel, seeing the situation on the time, from a new list of issues, which is not the usual procedure, but seeing the situation we have to do that, and we have to receive information on the draft Israel is planning to do and have a human side in the context, we are going to finish the answer that comments on that. Secondly, we are also issuing statements. We have issued these statements, and I think we learned myself
is it worth it? What is the value? What is the strength of the statement? But I can see that if you have the position of so many people who have been highlighted by the speaker, if you continue returning that this is not acceptable, what is going on is not acceptable at all, you start to start changing and changing the public opinion. I think that's what is happening now in several universities. Young people speaking out and showing that they do not accept what is going on. They do not accept that the state is continuing to support the power of the state that is committing acts that seem to allow the genocide if we follow the ruling of the ICJ. This is really important. We have states that are so changing their mind. For instance, concerning the defending of the Rouba, once we have heard that there are particular proof of the accusation that were put on UNRWA, states have reconsidered this defunding. By the way, some states, very courageous states, and among them Belgium, did from the very beginning say we are not going to stop funding UNRWA because this is actually the only way to continue supporting the population. Last sentence, if I may, we are mainly to ask for a ceasefire. I often hear that people are asking for a humanitarian ceasefire. We need a ceasefire. That's it. And not a temporary ceasefire. We need a permanent ceasefire. Imagine a child, and they have already been through that. We tell the child, okay, now for 15 days you are safe, you will not receive any bomb on your head anymore. But maybe in 2 weeks' time, it will start again. How can you start rebuilding? How can you start providing the psychological support and starting to address the trauma that all those children have been facing? This is a new kind of torture. Let us be very clear on that. You know, announcing that we may start again bombing them in 15 days or 40 days, I don't know. Anyway, this is a kind of torture. So we have to claim for an immediate permanent ceasefire. There is no other way, and then we start building for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benoit. Just because apparently the sound online is not very good, but in particular in relation with the forthcoming session, we hope hopefully that Israel will be in September and has received already the new question, the set of questions from the Committee on the Rights of the Child, and they will respond. And the second very important point from Benoit, it was on also the ceasefire, because several times we speak about ceasefire. Even the Security Council, there are adjectives in front of the ceasefire: humanitarian ceasefire, temporary ceasefire. At the beginning, we didn't even we were speaking about pauses. So all this has to stop. We need a lasting and permanent ceasefire to permit the children, but also the people and the civil society to reconstruct. Is what is needed. And otherwise, as Benoit emphasized, this is a form of violence. It's a form of torture that continues to be exercised among children. Iber, and please speak very close to the mic because
I'll try. My name is Iber Fabik. I represent the Rafto Foundation. I would like to make to encourage you, if you can comment, you can, if not. But we are Europeans. It seems to me that we share a very strong historical responsibility. We cannot place that on the premise alone. But we are now in a situation where we have I believe, a collective action problem, which is exacerbated by our history. I'm wondering if you have any comments on how this problem can be solved. If you cannot say anything about it, as diplomats, I would still like to encourage you as much as you can to move Germany on this issue, which plays a crucial role in our European system for political and historical reasons.
Who would like to take the floor on this?
Well, obviously, I cannot speak for Germany, of course, but
For Europe, yes.
for Europe, I could try to say yes. I think things are moving. If you look at the statements that were made, you know, those, of course, right after the 7th of October, were mainly statements of solidarity with the Israeli people, of course. But then, right after the start of the military operation in Gaza, you could already hear and see that the tone was changing. And that has been progressive, of course, I recognize that. And some within the EU were more vocal than others. But if you take the different statements that were made on behalf of the EU as a whole, so for instance, by the European Council, and the highest organ, the highest body of the EU, I mean, the latest one was very clear, personal. So that's why I think it is changing. Also because we see what is happening on the ground, and so the realities are there. And I think countries respond to that, maybe too slowly. I can understand that reaction, but I think it's fair to recognize that there is a change. There is a change. And on calling Israel to be free from a military operation in Rafah, I think we were all very clear, and we continue to be.
In the US.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Close to the mic.
Yeah, thank you for the question, which is extremely relevant and straightforward. My first response would be that EU is in 27, and we are a group of countries, and the ideas within those groups are prevailing. They are, and we are seeing it on a daily basis. The last time that I saw it, when we were negotiating the accountability resolution, the so-called Item 2 resolution with the Human Rights Council, and the EU delegation was leading in a clear way, in a way. So it is, these are small steps that we are doing, and I believe these are also steps that can, in a way, decolonialize our minds, because if steps every day are taken in that regard, then we can also see the difference. But then again, we are surrounded by media's reporting on only the negative sides of what we are doing. So when we would really need positive stories out of the small chambers of negotiating things that are really important and really have the effect on the ground that would prevail. I know that if you see it just from geopolitical standpoint, the picture is terrifying. But from the personal diplomatic perspective, we can see that alliances are built in the most unlikely places sometimes. And this is something that we need to cherish and that we need to emphasize more, probably, than we do.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the response. And I think the European level we will approach it. By the way, we have invited, this is also to the European Mission present, We are open to receive commissioners, parliamentarians. You know, we have in June parliamentary elections in Europe. We will be very happy to hear parliamentarians currently or candidates and what's their point of view. So our webinars are open also to this debate, and welcome. Other questions? We have one question, Professor Segal. Yeah. Please, you want to take the floor also.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the last question. If I understood correctly, it was a question that relates to the responsibility of Europeans, basically. Was that the question?
Well,
Yes.
yeah, and the collective action problem we have in assuming that responsibility.
Yes, the responsibility of Europeans and how we can move.
Yeah. So it's just like a short comment on that. I mean, I think that we're all clear on the fact that Israel has enjoyed in the international system that is dominated by the West and Europe, total impunity since its founding, right, for well-documented international crimes, right, in front of our eyes. I talked about absurdities before, right? I mean, there's almost 1 million Jewish settlers in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, which is a crude violation of international law. It has been going on for decades, right? And we're all playing this game that is basically called impunity, that is based on the dehumanization of Palestinians, that is based on the denial of a documented truth with a library of research on it, the Nakba, and the ongoing Israeli mass violence against Palestinians. Any way going forward, right? Any political mechanisms, diplomatic mechanisms have to be based on the recognition of this history on truth. I mean, again, as a Jew, as a Holocaust scholar, could we imagine justice? Can we imagine reconciliation? Can we imagine a different future in Palestine, Israel, for everyone there, for the Jews and Palestinians there, without truth? This is a basic thing, right? We live in an era of global Holocaust memory. We fight against Holocaust denial. We have to recognize the Nakba. We have to recognize the history of Israel as a settler colonial state. We have to reject the political ideology at the basis of this, which is Zionism, in order to envision a completely different state and society in Palestine, Israel. This is the basis for, and this is, of course, a key European responsibility, I agree, right? But it's the basis for any political and diplomatic mechanisms going forward.
Thank you so much, Brad. If there is no other question from here or online, then we will go back to Rouba, and each of you also, you will have 2 minutes also as a closing remarks and response also to the others. Rouba, requesting for the floor.
Thank you. Just 5 very quick points. The first one, because I heard, thank you for your question. It's about Europe, really, because I feel like Gaza can be Europe's next big problem on 2 fronts. The first one is Europe today has a very big refugee population from Arab countries, and all of them are not happy about how Europe is reacting to Gaza. So I think integration will be an issue. Young men and women who are being silenced in German protests, they will not happily integrate in this country anymore. They will not feel seen or heard, not only in Germany, in all of the countries. If you are coming, Syrians, for example, they came to Europe because there is no freedom of speech in Syria. They came to Europe because there is no human rights in Syria. So this is the first point. The second point on responsibility sharing, because I believe more and more the EU is becoming endangered as an idea, the idea of the European Union, because you are Greek, Alex, originally. I mean, Greece, for example, had a problem with the rest of European countries on responsibility sharing when it came to refugees, or burden sharing, because nobody was helping from other European countries. And today, I mean, it's the same. If one of the European countries is acting as an aggressor, and they are mentioning that they might try them in the ICC as well, not try them, but like bring it up at the ICC. This is a reflection of European values and of the EU's values in general. My third point is about, yes, I understand the diplomatic aspect of like slowly one foot after the other, etc. But like this is a genocide, so urgency, I would say, like urgency here is very important. The other thing I want to mention about maybe about also women, and I think a lot can be done. I'm sure each one of you have friends in the German embassies, in the German, like soft diplomacy is something, like inviting someone over to dinner and talking softly about things, that could be a way forward also. I'm not like inventing the wheel, but I feel like soft diplomacy is not very much always used to change mindsets. And here, yes, slowly and and softly maybe. And that's my last point. I just really want to thank Dr. Raz, because you are a hero. And really, whenever I meet Jews and Jews for Palestine, Jews for the truth, Jews for justice, it's not easy at all, and you really have to step out of your pain and traumas and everything that you've heard from your family and predecessors in the past, and take a choice to stand for justice. And I think this is not nothing. So I just wanted to thank you very much for your stance.
Thank you very much, Rouba. So now we will have a round with 2 minutes each. You want to start, Khaled, or and then?
Thank you very much. Really, when I talk, I decided not to go in details because no one can say that we know nothing about what is happening in Gaza. Everyone is following and knowing about the damage. I decided not to talk about how many houses they damaged, how many people left their families. So it's a disaster, and genocide is going on. The problem, to be clear, the problem is no political will when it comes to the states. States are complicit by keeping silent, by keeping working slowly against this genocide. It's in the account on the cost of the civilians. There is blood paying as a price for the delay of taking an action. This is the time for truth. To Israel live under firm impunity since tens of years. They committed war crimes against humanity, ongoing occupation, killing, never held accountable for these crimes. This is why they are doing the genocide, because they are sure that there is who are protecting them from any accountability, and even in the Security Council. This is the time for the truth. This is the time to decide in which side of the history you are, because any minute we are late, there is a blood on the other side. There is people who are losing their life. So this is the time for. Thank you.
Thank you, Khaled, and permit me to say that we are proud to have a Palestinian president in DCI for the whole movement. Ahmad.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the panel, the audience, and thanks for Rafto Foundation. Just a final note, the policy of let's wait and see is not a costly option. The world has moved to stop any ground operation in Rafah. We have to cease fire now. I mean, each minute it costs lives, it costs families. And I think it's time to operate. Any forced evictions from Rafah is unacceptable to anyone, to us as Egyptians. I mean, to Palestinians, to anyone with a consciousness in this world. This is something that has to stop. And we reiterate that we pray for peace, but we pray for ceasefire, and this is the eminent thing now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Raz, a few words for closing on your side.
Yes, thank you. Just a few things. I mean, I want to echo Dr. Mhaissen's, and thank you for your words, Dr. Mhaissen, on the urgency. I mean, we're with an unfolding genocide for 7 months now, right? It's unbelievably urgent. It's shameful that the International Criminal Court has not done anything so far. It's truly shameful because the evidence is in front of our eyes. We all know that the evidence is in front of our eyes, right? It's also, I mean, we see this discourse about the rumors about the ICC, right? There's never been an investigation in the ICC like this with so many rumors, right? This again shows us this kind of exceptional idea, this impunity, right? Which are all very, very problematic, right? This idea that Israel as a Jewish state is somehow different. It's actually an anti-Semitic idea when you think about it deeply. But I want to, because this is so urgent, I think that, and because we're talking about responsibility, and this is a forum with a lot of Europeans here, then everyone here has something to do. We can all take part in boycott, in sanctions, and divestment, because we know that the only way that Israel can continue its genocidal assault is with European and US support. And yes, most of the support comes from the US, and that's a major struggle, but everyone knows that if Israel's allies will stop supporting it, it cannot continue to pursue the genocidal assault that it's doing. So everyone here has responsibility, indeed, and everyone here can do something very, very concrete. It's in our hands.
Thank you so much for the Segal. Also to say that, I think the urgency to act, because as we said, diplomacy has its rhythm, but Dunya, Fatima, Karim, all the children there are not waiting, they are dying. So we cannot follow the flow of the bureaucracy or of the procedures. We have to act, and every citizen can act. And something we didn't cover today, but we will cover in our rest webinars, is the mobilization of youth. And this is also how we see in the US, but also in Europe, students mobilizing and raising their voice, and that's hopeful also. Then to our next speaker, so a few words for closing.
Thank you. Well, I can only echo what just said. Indeed, like Professor Segal said, that this is a strong call on all of us and each of us to do something about it. And again, yeah, it may be very little, but I think there are things we can do for us. And I think the worst thing would be really to fall in a sort of resignation, indifference, saying, oh, anyway, there's nothing we can do, you know, it is what it is, and that's it. And we cannot do that. So we need really to remain engaged, take each and every opportunity to raise our voice, be vocal. We try to do it always in a balanced way, because I think it's important to also recall the barbaric attacks of Hamas on innocent people, innocent Jews. And so I think it's important to be principled, balanced, but vocal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Jana.
Thank you. My first takeaway is talk to US and Israeli counterparts on Convention of the Right to Return. Concretely. Then we all have responsibility and we need to act quickly. That's the second takeaway. There is no time in our heads. It needs to be very good. We need consolidation within EU, and we need to reflect on our responsibility. And immediate ceasefire is necessary, and we need to spread that line to the Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's 4 o'clock. We are finishing on time, and thank all our panelists for their contribution, all the laureates that they have been present and supporting, all the people online. And I apologize for the sound, who was not very good apparently. We'll try to improve that. And the webinars, there is no problem, because the hybrids are a bit more tricky. Remind you of the next webinars, which will be next week, next Wednesday, the 8th of May, the 17th and the 31st. We have already very, very interesting persons and panelists. You are all invited. You can just write to the webinar address that you use for this meeting. And you can also share it with your friends, colleagues, who would like to attend, most welcome. Thank you so much, and we stand in solidarity with Palestine and hope that we will be better days soon.